In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can become that person that remembers everybody's name. Now, I didn't used to be that person, and I was sure I just had a really bad memory for names. And I just took it as inevitable that I'd go to a function or an event and come away after talking to people for hours and having a lovely time, but not knowing their name. Thankfully, this is something you can actually change, and you can actually become the person in the room who can remember everybody's name. So I remember when I first learned these techniques and I started applying them, and I decided to try it out on a workshop of students, some dance students that I was teaching, and I'd never met them before. And there was 25, 26 students in the room. So I went around the room and I got them to all introduce themselves to me. And as they did, I did the techniques that you're about to learn. And when I got to the end, I said, look, I'm just going to check I've got this right, because I really want you to get a lot out of this course, and I need to be able to give you corrections. I went back through them and I got them all right, and they broke into applause. And I remember thinking, this is fantastic. So today we're going to look at how you do it. There's 3 simple steps, and we're going to cover them. We're also going to talk a little bit about where you can practice and how you can practice. And you can trust me, you really can improve in this. So the first step when you meet someone new is to not panic. Now, I say this in some of my other videos as well, but it's really true. A lot of learning is about not panicking. It's about going, I've got this, I can do this, I can learn this person's name. So don't panic and listen to their name. Another common thing that people do sort of around this sort of first introductory step is nervously rehearse how they're going to introduce themselves, which is really a little bit crazy. And I was definitely guilty of that before, where I'm standing there going, nice to meet you, I'm Anastasia, as if I don't know my own name. So trust me, you're going to remember your own name. You don't need to go over it. What you want to do is change the focus from being about yourself to about the person you're about to meet. So you stand there ready, and this is a skill you actually have to practice. They say their name and they say, hi, my name's Megan, and you go, hi Megan, nice to meet you. So first step, really listen to their name. Don't concentrate on waiting to say your own name. And after you've heard their name, repeat it back either verbally or internally in your head. The second step, as you see this new person, is to identify a feature on them that stands out to you. Now, the feature that stands out to you is going to be totally different to the feature that might stand out to me. I might notice she's got lovely high cheekbones, and you might think, wow, what pretty big eyes. It doesn't matter. It's the first thing that really stands out to you. And this is another step in of its own that you need to practice. So when you first start out doing these techniques, it's easy to sort of think that everyone looks the same. You know, all eyes are the same, all lips are the same, ears are the same. They're not. Everyone has these really unique features and really quite different. Like, you know, you can have you can be long here, it can be close together, it can be wide, it can be deep. There's all these differences, and once you start identifying them and trying to notice them, you're going to notice more and more details about people. So you want to do that practice even when you don't know someone's name. So if you're sitting on the bus and you're watching someone, you want to take in as much about their face, you know, as you can. What feature would you choose as the prominent feature if you were introduced to them? Just maybe don't get caught staring at them, because they might think you're a little bit mad. The third step, and this is also something that you really need to practice, is creating an image that matches the name that they've given you and attach it to the feature. So an example of this would be, you know, sometimes there's obvious connections like Billy. So Billy, I straight away think of a Billy goat. So let's say I meet someone and it's a Billy, and he's got quite long earlobes, and he says his name's Billy. I'm not panicking. I go, hi Billy, nice to meet you. And I'm straight away attaching onto his ears big Billy horns, and maybe they're sort of like almost poking me in the eye. So you sort of want to interact with the images as well. Now, that's a really easy example, but sometimes you might have something where, you know, it's a name that reminds you of someone else with that same name. So an example of that might be my sister Sarah. Her name's Sarah, and for some reason, when I first think of my sister Sarah, I think of my dad's donuts. There's these little donuts my dad used to make that are a funny shape, and my sister makes them. So if I met a Sarah and I wanted to remember the Sarah, I could attach those donuts to her most prominent feature. And I wouldn't just attach them. So let's say she's got flary nostrils. I wouldn't just attach the donuts there. I'd sort of be really shoving them in there, and there'd be the icings falling out all over her. So you want to, and it's on her face, you sort of want to interact the image with the person and their feature as well. And this takes a little bit of practice, and also takes a bit of practice to just look normal while you're doing it. So you're going, "Hi Sarah, nice to meet you," rather than going. But once you practice it, you will get good at it, and it's easy as. If it's a little bit harder, it could be that the name sounds like something. So maybe the name is Dwayne, and Dwayne, I would think Dwayne sounds like drain. So, I might see a drain going from, maybe he's got a very tall forehead, and I see a drain pipe coming off his forehead and his brains are leaking out through it, or something terrible like that. I know when I first started, when I'd come across a Bianca, the anchor part of Bianca sounds like an anchor, like getting lowered. But for some reason, I kept forgetting it. It didn't matter what I did. I forgot it until I added a B, as in a buzzing bee, around the anchor for Bianca. And then now, because I've practiced that lots of times, I can just use an anchor and I know it means Bianca. You might come across a harder name. So a harder name for me anyway, because it's unusual to me, would be something like Abdul. So I'd go, Abdul, what does this remind me of? It reminds me of two things: ab as in stomach abs, and dul sounds a little bit like drool. So I would see some abs on whatever their prominent feature is, and they're drooling and that's running down the person's face onto their neck, etc. A little bit crazy, I know. Another thing you can do is, it might remind you of something in the way of, like, Lee reminds me of Levi jeans, or, that type of thing. Sharon reminds me of an Australian woman, so somehow that reminds me of barbecue tongs. Their connection can be as strange as you like. If it makes sense to you, it's going to work. But the main thing to remember here is that you're identifying the prominent feature on their face, you're making an image that sounds like the name or reminds you of that name, and then linking them together. And then the final step is to use their name as much as possible in the conversation, or, keep sort of checking that you understand it, you know their name if you're meeting lots of different people. But the next time you see this person, when you want to recall their name, don't panic. So the first tip is still the same, don't panic. After you have not panicked, then you go, okay, what is your most prominent feature? 99 times out of 100, I still choose the same feature as I chose last time. So don't go for things like hair or earrings and things like that, because they change. So 99 times out of 100, I choose the same feature. I go, oh, look, they've got big earlobes. Oh, his name's Billy. So you'll be amazed at how this works. Give it a go. Practice it. The great thing about names is they're everywhere around us, so you've got lots of opportunities to practice. And by that I mean not just when you're introduced to a person, but you see name tags on people in shops, you see all the different names and faces on all the different social medias. So Instagram's a great one for seeing a lot of different names, on the television, and even just the step of practicing which feature you'd identify on people that you see in the street or on the bus or on the train. So you can practice this skill everywhere, and of course when you meet people is the ideal time. So next time you go to some big function, be ready and armed with those 3 steps. Focus on the person's name, so focus on the person, listen to their name, don't be worried about introducing yourself, and repeat it back in your head. Identify their most prominent feature, attach an image to that feature and interact with it, so that reminds you of that name. And that's all you have to do. Don't try, you don't have to try remembering 80 people's names the first time you try this out. Just go, well, if I would normally remember 2 at a party, I'm going to remember 6 people's names, and see how you go. The other really great thing about this is, as you get into practicing how to remember names, you'll find that you build up a kind of mental library, a mental list. Whenever I come across a Bianca, I have an anchor with a B flying around the bottom. Whenever I have a Lee, I see Levi jeans. So it becomes easier and easier, and the times when you have to get creative is when it's an unusual name to you. But I use that as an example to, really exercise my creative brain and work out a new connection that I can use to remember that person's name. If you like this video, subscribe, and then you'll be notified when I have other videos that come out. If you want to get my free exclusive memory tips, head over to masterrecall.com and jot in your email, and I'll make sure that they get sent out to you along with my other subscribers. Remembering people's names just opens doors to you. It is human nature that people want to be remembered. They want you to know who they are, and they engage with you when you do remember their name.